we're good. It's preparing to live stream. So,
Okay, okay.
and then I'm also recording.
Thank you.
I will hit record in just a second, but. And I'll have my Teams on if you want to send me any messages.
Okay, great. Good morning. We'll give folks just a couple of more minutes to jump on, and we'll get going. Thanks so much for making the time this morning.
Morning, Matt.
Good morning. Thanks so much for joining. I was going to give it just a couple of more minutes to see if we get more folks on. Thanks so much for making the time this morning.
Yeah, no problem. Happens to be a flexible, relatively flexible time for me. I'm on paternity leave, so a little bit easier to, well, it depends. I was gonna say easier to join things, but it depends.
It's also probably easier for disruptions too.
Yeah.
Good morning. We'll give it just a couple of more minutes. Folks are still jumping on, so we'll give it another minute or so before we get going. Thanks so much for being here this morning. Can you all see my screen with the agenda up there as well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I've done more on Teams than I have on Zoom, so forgive me if it goes a little askew.
Good morning, Matt and everybody. This is Mick. I'm gonna stay off video. I badly injured my knee this last weekend trail running, so I'm horizontal at the moment.
Okay. Thanks for being here and speedy healing.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm. I know we had a few more folks register. Maybe we'll just give it one more minute and then we'll go ahead and get going. I just want to make sure we can catch as many folks as possible. Well, let's see, it's four after. I think we'll go ahead and get going. Good morning and thank you for making the time to be here this morning and welcome. I'll go into some more apologies later, but my first is I'm sorry that it's been such a long time in coming to get this meeting together. As a reminder, this is a meeting of the Oregon Outdoor Recreation Advisory Council. It's being streamed live on YouTube. And then we're also recording it so that I can get it out to the rest of the council members once we're done. My name is Matt Rippey. I started with the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department in 2002 and have worked kind of across the state in different roles from park ranger to the human resources manager. And I actually was the operations manager at the state fair during the brief time that we had the state fair. I currently serve as the deputy director for field services with state parks. Within field services are our natural, cultural, and historic resource programs, our planning, engineering, and real estate, and then safety and risk and emergency management. And I also had the opportunity to work with Kaylin when the Office of Outdoor Recreation came back from the governor's office to state parks, Kaylin reported to me. And so we had a few months together to work, which I got a lot of value out. And actually I learned more about the program in that 3 months than I had learned in the couple of years before he'd gone over to the governor's office. So the purpose of the meeting, initially, I want to give some context again, and apologies for the last 6 months and the lack of communication. I also want the council to get acquainted and or kind of reacquainted with each other. So as we go through introductions, I also want to be sure to give you all time to share any input, any frustrations, because I'm sure that there are some out there, again, given kind of the lapse in communication. And then we'll move on to some updates of the things that Kaylin and I had been working on in the beginning of the year, the work plan that he had put together that I think some of you may be familiar with. And then I was going to close with filling kind of next steps on filling the position and what that looks like. Before I jump into anything, does anyone have any questions or want to make sure that if I didn't list something that you want covered, if you let me know that, I'll make sure that we get to that as well. Okay. Well, just feel free to chime in kind of anytime.
Sorry, Matt.
Oh,
I
sorry.
I couldn't raise my hand. This is Laura Fredrickson with Oregon Department of Forestry. Just clarifying the position, is that now still with the governor's office or did it go back to OPRD?
Great question. Thank you. It did come back to OPRD in the beginning of this year. So in January of 23. And one thing I forgot to mention too, thank you for that question, by the way. One thing I forgot to mention is I don't anticipate anything coming forward that the council would need to vote on today, but because we don't have a quorum, we wouldn't be able to do that at this point anyways, but I just want to make sure and get that out there. If there are things, suggestions, those kinds of things that we want to bring to the next council meeting where we anticipate having a quorum, I'll make those notes so that we can bring that forward to the next meeting. So again, before we move on to introductions, I want to acknowledge, I think how frustrating probably the last 6 months have been and apologize for that. I don't want to give you any excuses. It truly was a question of capacity. As an agency, we're still kind of rebuilding. We got hit pretty hard by COVID. And so the last 2.5 years, we've been rehiring about 70 positions that we lost because of COVID. We also received some bond funding with some really tight timelines around it. All of those kinds of things. So again, I don't want to provide excuses, just context and truly a heartfelt apology. I'm quite frankly a little embarrassed that I have not reached out earlier, and so I am sorry. I want to be sure that you all know that's not a reflection of kind of Oregon State Parks support of the Office of Outdoor Recreation at all. Again, it just really goes back to capacity. A few folks have reached out over the last couple of weeks, which I was really grateful for. It really helped kind of bring it to my attention that we needed to pull folks together. I would ask in the future, you know, as human beings, without information, we tend to kind of make up stories. And I would ask that we'll get back on a better track of communication. I'll be sending out updates monthly. We'll make sure and get meetings scheduled. But if you have questions or suggestions or those kinds of things in between those updates or in between those meetings, now that we have kind of met, I would encourage you to reach out to me, whether it's through email, text, phone call, you know, Teams or Zoom, whatever works for you. I would really encourage you to reach out so that you don't feel like you're in some kind of a you know, communication vacuum. And again, I'll put some things into place to make sure that doesn't happen on my end. But again, if there are things that you're wondering about, please do reach out in the future. So having said that, I will start sending out a monthly update. I don't anticipate there's going to be a lot of new information in between now and kind of filling the position, but I just want to hopefully start rebuilding some trust and that communication with you all. We'll move back to having the bi-monthly meetings. I will send out a doodle poll to make sure that we can get kind of the most council members to those meetings. I'll send those out well in advance. so that you all can get those on your calendar. We can get a strong attendance at those meetings. That's as we transition again into getting that position filled, and we'll kind of get back on track with that. The other apology that I wanted to acknowledge is I didn't realize that there had been advisory council meeting slated for next week at the summit, at the Outdoor Recreation Summit down in Coos Bay. So when I set this up, it was with the intention of giving you all this information, kind of a check-in, getting to know each other again, those sorts of things, so that when Lisa, our director, is going to be sharing, kind of next steps with hiring the position, I wanted to get you that information prior to it being kind of released to the broader recreation world. It truly was out of respect for your role as council members, not realizing that there had already been a meeting set up next week. So again, that was 100% on me, and I apologize for that too if that caused some confusion. But the intent truly was to get you the information before it went out to that broader audience. And I thought, because this is recorded, folks that weren't able to attend could go back and watch it before that summit next week. So anyways, like I said, I'll get on a better schedule of notifying everybody of these meetings as we move forward. So with that, I would like to move into introductions, and what I'm hoping we can do with this is, kind of the general introductions: your name, your role on the council, your role in the broader recreation world. And then I want to be able to give folks any time that they feel like they need to give feedback, recommendations, any of those kinds of things. I have pretty thick skin, so if you want to address, some of the lapse in communication over the last 6 months, please do that. I'm going to be taking notes. I'll also be able to go back and make sure that I get those right by, watching the recording again. I'll get that information out to the group, and it's really going to help as we fill this position again. It'll help, steer some of that kind of communication forward once that position is filled. So with that, we can jump into introductions, if unless somebody's got questions before we do that. Okay, I am going to start at the top left of my screen, and I figured I'll call on somebody. Then once you're done with your introduction and your feedback, if you would just call on the next person, that would be great, if that sounds okay to everybody. At the top left of my screen is Melissa Wong.
Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa Wong. I am the chairperson for the Outdoor Recreation Advisory Council. I'm, along with everyone else, a new member as of last year. Outside of the Outdoor Recreation Advisory Council, I actually do not work in the outdoor recreation industry. I work in healthcare at OHSU up in Portland, but I'm just an avid user of outdoor recreation resources, frequent hiker, camper, beach goer, mushroom hunter, all of it. So happy to be here. Very excited to be the chairperson and excited to get more involved. And I will call on Ethan.
Thanks, Melissa. My name's Ethan Flory. Similar to Melissa, I just kind of saw an opening to apply to be on the council as a concerned citizen and wanted to get involved. I've loved the outdoors for many years, but over the last 4 or 5 years or so have really made an effort to find a way to work in the outdoor industry. And so I currently work for a company called Stio. We've got a retail store in Bend that just opened a year ago, but based out of Jackson Hole, make ski gear and other apparel like that. So love working in the industry, but also just love being involved and trying to make outdoor recreation in Oregon better for everyone in Oregon, and just wanted to pitch in as I can. So that's why I'm here, and happy to be a part of it. I guess next person I'm seeing is Laura Fredrickson.
You would think after 3 years of using the unmute button, I'd have it down now. My name is Laura Fredrickson. I serve as the Recreation Education and Interpretation Program Manager for the Oregon Department of Forestry. I also serve on this advisory committee. I guess I would just say my portfolio includes anything that has to do with recreation, education, interpretation on state forest lands. Primarily, most of our infrastructure and inventory currently is located on the northwest corner of the state. That being said, we do have future plans to try and build out some additional infrastructure and inventory on other state forests, I would say in central and south. I am an avid user of OPRDs, properties, BLM, like Melissa, I guess I would say I do it all. Doctorate in forestry, master's in outdoor recreation. So started with the Oregon Department of Forestry 3 years ago. And in terms of, Matt, I appreciate your self-effacing apologies, but in my mind, no apologies necessary. Lots going on. Many organizations, particularly state agencies, are in a state of rebuilding. So I can appreciate and thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
And I will call on Chris Elliott.
Thanks, Laura. Chris Elliott, Associate Vice Provost for Extension at OSU. Lots of different outdoor programs, adults, youth, and things happen with Extension. So that's sort of the connection. And then also was part of the former First Gentleman's Roadmap to the Outdoors work group. So maybe as a suggestion, I know this is not the First Gentleman or the Governor's group, but certainly I think if there were a capacity or a means for that group or a group similarly to pick that work up and keep moving, quite a bit was accomplished. And it kind of just paused, obviously, as when COVID happened, certainly, and then as the administration changed. But I think that group would be eager to, or maybe this group, to continue that work and pick it up.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll talk a little bit more about that after we get through the introductions. Thank you, Chris.
And I guess I will choose the other Melissa.
Thank you, Chris. I'm Melissa Drugi. I work for Business Oregon as the Business Services Director. My section involves business recruitment, business retention and expansion. And as the State Economic Development Agency, outdoor gear and apparel is one of our 5 key industries. So while I also have a love for the outdoors, as we're all Oregonians, I actually reside and live on the eastern side of the state. So that's fun and exciting because Business Oregon through COVID has, made all kinds of shifts to really look at ourselves as a statewide agency and putting people in places other than our central offices in Portland and Salem. So outdoor enthusiast, happy to be here, serving as ex officio, and really eager to learn the work that has been done and how we'll move forward, and excited to be part of these discussions. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
And got to scroll here. Ryan.
And good morning, everybody. Yeah, my name is Ryan Singleton. I'm the forester for the Department of State Lands. I reside in Bend, Oregon, have statewide responsibilities. So I guess with this committee, I'm coming from more of a land manager perspective. And to be quite frank, I didn't know, I kind of forgot about this whole endeavor here. So a little bit of trying to get back into the swing of things and see what this council is about. So I'd say in general, being a land manager, most of what we deal with on the Department of State Lands is hunting. I'd say we don't have trail systems and those sorts of things. So I'll be coming from probably a little bit different perspective than some folks. But glad to be part of the group here, and yeah, eager to see how I can contribute, and look forward to future meetings. I don't see who's next. Let me scroll down and see who else is right. I think, how about Mick?
Hi all, Mick Menard. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm with the REI co-op. And apologies for not seeing you all. I think I shared at the beginning. I blew out my knee this weekend running trail in Central Oregon. So my voice is even a little scratchy too from laying down for so long. I am the regional experiences manager at the REI co-op. I've been there for nearly a decade, overseeing how we can inspire and enable all people in this country to reconnect with the outdoors. And I oversee a lot of the trips and tours design, mostly in Montana, Wyoming, Oregon, Southwest Washington, and Idaho. I am very involved in the philanthropic and public policy and advocacy initiatives of the co-op in this region, and very devoted to many of the discussions that you are likely a part of around the outdoor recreation economy, and really how to give it a new shape, a sort of a new narrative, to make sure that all the places that we all love are accessible to all people, in all the ways that people like to experience nature and the outdoors. I just want to underscore something that Chris Elliott shared, which is I'd also really love to see the roadmap to the outdoors work, and actually all the tributaries that were created as a result of that work come back to life. And we've not talked about it as a council, but I think it's a wonderful discussion for us to have, which is how do we sort of re-inspire, reignite really the gems of that work, and then potentially orient this new director to that work, assuming that that they weren't a part of it initially. Who knows? But I will be the first to raise my hand to help really just facilitate dialogues around how we can bring that back into the center of our discussions around regenerative recreation for all people in the state and beyond. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Since a couple of you touched on that, I'm not sure how many of you, maybe show me a raise of hands if you've seen the agreement that was put in place that kind of described the makeup of the advisory council, those kinds of things. Have any of you seen that? I was planning on sending it out to you all kind of after the meeting, because that's one of the things I think that would be good to look at is the makeup of that, the membership of the council. And that's something I think moving forward would be a great conversation with whoever we end up putting in as the director of the Office of Outdoor Recreation. But I didn't see any hands come up, which tells me that maybe none of you have seen that. Okay, so I will I have it here, and because I was actually going to mention that. Give me 1 second here. Let me know if you can see this. I'm just pulling currently up the part that talks about the membership. Can you all see that? Okay, great. So it leaves a fair bit of room for kind of growth or retraction, I suppose. But I think that this is a similar makeup from what was the governor's task force on outdoor recreation. I want to say that a lot of this language was taken from that. So at least three outdoor recreation participants that reflect the indigenous heritage, cultural richness. I won't read it all because you all have it in front of you, but again, I'll send this out to you. One of the things that I was wondering about this, and again, this is, we can talk about it. We can't make any decisions right now because we don't have a quorum, but one of the things that it lists in there that strikes me is it lists only 2 members from federally recognized sovereign tribes, and there are 9 across the state of Oregon. And it seems to me that would be worthy of conversation of, do we want to open it up to all 9 tribes and let them decide whether or not they want to participate, rather than scoping it down to just 2. And Mick or Chris, others that have been involved with the governor's task force, you may have better history on this than I do. I just don't know kind of the history behind why it was limited to only 2. Hi, Steph.
Good morning.
Thanks
Coming
for
from
making
another
it.
meeting. Sorry for being so late.
No, not at all. I'm so glad you could make it. Thank you. Steph, we did just go through introductions, and what I asked folks for was to introduce yourself, introduce your role on the council, your role in the kind of broader recreation world, and then feedback. And I let folks know, and again, you can go back and watch the first few minutes of the presentation. But just I was asking for some candid feedback on, kind of anticipating that there had been frustration over the last couple of months. You and I have chatted. And so if you want to do that real quick and just let folks know who you are and your background and things you're hoping to see, frustrations you've had, those kinds of things. I want to provide that opportunity for folks.
I'll try to be brief. I don't want to derail anything, but I'm Steph Knoll, director of the Oregon Trails Coalition. So I serve as a liaison with the broader trails community. Our Trails Coalition includes kind of all types of trail users across the motorized and non-motorized spectrum, as well as local, state, and federal agency partners, travel and tourism partners, health partners, et cetera. So that's my role on the council specifically, and the Trails Coalition. We serve as conveners for multi-jurisdictional kinds of trail planning and development efforts, as well as policy advocates for further investment in our trail maintenance and development in Oregon. So that's me in a nutshell. And I've spoken with Matt a lot over the last several months, just in terms of we really just as a coalition see so much value in having a good, strong office of outdoor recreation, and are really excited to work with you, our fellow council members, to just continue to provide support for that office to do its work of convening partners and helping support kind of multi-agency efforts in the state. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much. I'm so glad you could make it. And Steph, again, you may have some background on how the membership was put together for the council. My understanding is a lot of this did come from the governor's task force on outdoor recreation. So again, I think this would be a good conversation to kind of continue once we kind of reestablish these meetings, get the positions filled, is revisiting the membership and making sure that it's what you're looking for, really, I guess is probably the bottom line. So Chris, I know that doesn't maybe totally answer your question, but I think we can get there. I think with your role on here, and once we get that position filled, moving it in a direction where the membership of the council kind of represents what you all see is needed. So with that, I'm going to pull the, and I, again, will send this out to you all so that you've got a copy of it. This is essentially an agreement between agencies to help support this, but it also has obviously the outline of the membership of the advisory council and some different things in there. So I will get that out to you all. I'm going to pull the agenda back up. Okay, so I wanted to provide some updates on some of the things that Kaylin and I had been working on when the office came back into OPRD. And I'll be honest with you, for me, a big part of that was supporting Kaylin and the office. So really trying to set up budgets for the office so that there was funding to do, whether it's website upgrades or whatever it was. We as an agency hadn't dedicated a strong budget to that kind of prior to it going to the governor's office. I don't know that it had much budget support there either, and so I really, my whole goal was to incorporate Kaylin and the Office of Outdoor Recreation into Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. So things like budget, looking at upgrading websites, getting the council on the OREC website. We were also in the process of working with our communications division to get kind of that one-stop shop for permitting for kind of all agencies in one place. Those sorts of things. We also were looking at future positions, how we might be able to build the Office of Outdoor Recreation so that it's not just an office of one, because it's really challenging to get something done with one person. And so we had looked at things like a statewide recreation planner that could pull stakeholders together regionally, as an example, and start developing plans for moving recreation forward in the region. So those were the kind of things that we were working on, setting up goals. So I wanted to share this with you. This is as an agency, we go through kind of a coordination planning so that all of the different sections of the agencies are talking to each other. So if somebody needs IT needs or needs financial services needs, like those conversations are happening as we're building goals. And so I was able to work with Kaylin, and I think these goals will look very familiar if you've looked at the past OREC goals. We just incorporated them kind of into the agency's goals. And again, this is something I'll send out to you after this meeting, so you've got a copy of it. But so the main goals were provide leadership on statewide outdoor recreation policy development. Again, something he's been working on. We just wanted to formalize it and integrate it into the agency as a whole. And then what are some of the barriers? What is the external support he would need? All of those kinds of things. The second goal was coordinate between local, state, federal agencies and the public to solve multi-jurisdictional issues and share information. And then support communities through research, technical assistance, and alignment of funding priorities. And then the fourth goal he had was support and seek support from other sections of the agency, such as government relations and policy, communications division, and grants and community programs on shared goals. That last one really kind of underscores that, bringing that office back into Oregon Parks and Recreation and really giving it the support that it needs to be successful. So I'll send that out so you have a copy. I would anticipate that as we hire this position, this will help kind of move them forward and you know, give them some goals to start working towards with you all on the council. Any questions on that? I know that's fast, and again, I'll send it out to you. So once you see it, if you read through it and you're like, what does this mean? Or if you have questions about anything, please do just reach back out to me. Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I will move on. The last thing I wanted to touch on is really kind of next steps. I'm going to pull this agreement back up, and again, I will send this out to you all. Give me just a second here. I'm going to scroll to the top. I'm sorry if it's a little slow. I actually, my office is in La Grande, and I don't have the best connectivity in the state. So I'm sorry for that. But essentially what this is, it's a memorandum of understanding between different agencies to help support this. And this agreement, you know, talks about the governor's task force. It actually expired June 30th of 23. So one of the first things that we'll need to do as we get this position filled is renew this agreement with the different agencies. In the interim, that's, I think, looking at the makeup of the advisory council and just the makeup of the agreement itself is going to be really important for this group to see what kind of changes, additions, subtractions that there needs to be. So that's why I want to get this out to you now so that you've got, you know, a little while to look it over the next couple of months as we work towards getting the position recruited for. Let's see. So in terms of next steps, another thing I wanted to mention, and it's related to the Office of Outdoor Recreation, but a little bit more indirectly. Oregon State Parks, we just closed a recruitment for a statewide trails planner. I think we're doing interviews starting next week. I wanted to be able to share that information with you because I think it's going to serve a little bit of a hybrid purpose. I think it obviously is going to help with some of the statewide planning, trail planning that we have as an agency, but I also see it serving a little bit broader and looking at some of kind of multi-jurisdictional trails, not only the needs, but existing trails. So just the state park side of things. I anticipate we'll have that position filled by the end of the year at the latest. It's a little tricky with holidays coming up and those kinds of things, but I would anticipate we'll have that filled then. In terms of the director of the Office of Outdoor Recreation, we will begin that recruitment process in the first quarter of 24. So coming up pretty quick. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure and kind of have this meeting and get some of the support in place internally so that when we do hire that person that we're kind of ready to go. So in terms of what that recruitment process looks like, well, I can't tell you exactly what it looks like. I know that this council will be a part of that. So I'll thank you in advance for your help. My guess is that's probably going to be related to part of the interview process to make sure that the person that we hire for that position kind of fits with what we're all looking for. In the interim, we have also been looking at some different models across other states. That's one of the things that Kayla and I talked a lot about. Was there some pretty successful models across other states? Wyoming, Utah come to mind, where they have a little bit more robust Office of Outdoor Recreation. What that's going to look like exactly for Oregon, I don't know yet, but I share that with you. I guess in the spirit of letting you know, I'm open. I'm really open. I'm actually pretty excited about the potential of what this office could look like in terms of planning, recreation planning, whether that be trails or broad kind of statewide recreation, those sorts of things. So I'm excited. Again, once we get this position filled, what we might be able to do with that. Let's see. I know I talked about the budget for the office. What I'd like to do is spend this funding cycle ends in June 30 of 25. Between now and then, I would really like to build a pretty strong budget for the office so that we know going forward what that could and should look like for the, as we expand kind of the impact of that office. I also, one of the things that Kaylin and I had been working on that, when he left in April, I didn't continue it. We were going to actually hire a limited duration statewide recreation planner. So not trails, but just kind of statewide recreation, and start looking at what it would take to do some of that regional recreation planning, pulling in kind of all stakeholders, public, private, nonprofit, and helping those regions decide what some of their recreation could and should look like. So I would anticipate we'll probably pick that conversation back up once we're able to hire that position. Again, I know I mentioned Kaylin was working pretty close with our communications division, starting to have good conversations with our grants divisions, because as you all may or may not know, part of the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department are community grants, Land and Water Conservation Fund grants, Recreation Trail grants. There's a lot that the grants program and OREC have in common. And so really kind of starting to develop that relationship and that dialogue is going to be, I think, moving forward, a step in the right direction. And I think in terms of updates, I mentioned the website too. I think in terms of updates, that's really what I have. So I want to make sure and open it up for questions, comments, something I'm missing that you are curious about, anything like that. I'm open. And if I don't have the answer right now, I will find it. Yes, Laura.
Yeah, so Matt, can you, to the best of your ability, help the advisory council understand the ping-ponging between where this Office of Outdoor Recreation, governor back with OPRD, governor back with OPRD. Can you help us understand what that's about? And also, do you have any degree of certainty that it's going to stay with OPRD? That's
a great question. And to be totally honest with you, so it came to, and actually Steph and maybe Melissa Wong may have a little bit better history on this than I do. So when the office was created, it was created as a part of the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. Why it went to the governor's office and came back, I'll be honest with you, I don't actually know. And I can definitely find that out for you. I don't think it would take much. But I'm not sure. I want to say it may have been, and I don't want to kind of mislead anybody, but I think it was due to COVID and when the lack of funding that the agency, Oregon State Parks, had at the time. I kind of think that's when it went over. But again, Steph or Melissa might have a better sense of why that happened.
I mean, my understanding is the original advocates for the office thought that it might be have some more stability housed within a state agency as opposed to within the governor's office, so that it wouldn't be subject to the whims or different shifting priorities of different governors on the same level. And then I think that Governor Kate Brown's office kind of wanted to tap Kaylin as more of a direct policy advisor on outdoor recreation issues, kind of had put forward the omnibus outdoor recreation legislation and such. And so that just to kind of maintain that really strong relationship on outdoor recreation policy. And then likewise, all the organizing happening with COVID, where there were kind of different sector kind of working groups on COVID response. And I think Kaylin kind of became kind of that outdoor recreation, fire, land manager point person.
Thanks.
Great, thank you, Steph. And then I do know with the new administration, that's when it came back to state parks. And I anticipate it staying with parks. Yeah, I don't anticipate it going to the governor's office. I see it is in its home now. Any other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to jump back in here with another question, Matt, if you don't mind.
No. Sure.
So you mentioned some of the parting conversations that you had with Kaylin were around other states who have successful offices of outdoor recreation. Excuse me. If that is a direction that the Office of Outdoor Recreation may be headed in terms of trying to replicate that or take aspects or elements of that, is that under the direct purview of whoever's getting hired into this position, or will that be in consultation with this advisory council?
Sure, great question. And it would be in consultation with this council. And then the final recommendation does need to go through the Oregon Parks and Recreation Commission. So there's several kind of checks and balances to make sure that everybody's on board and supportive, which I really appreciate, because I think with that broad support, there's more likelihood for success. Great question, though. And I do think, again, when I send out this MOU with the other agencies, a lot of that structural type stuff is pretty well explained in there, and I think will be very helpful. One of the things, Steph, since you weren't on the beginning, that I want to make sure and just kind of capture again is I will send up a monthly update to the entire council between now and the time that we get this position filled. Not that I don't anticipate that might continue, but I just want to make sure that I'm keeping you all in the loop. If there are changes, even if there are not, I'll say that just so you all know. I also encourage folks in between those updates and in between our bi-monthly meetings, which I will also get a doodle poll out to those well in advance so that everybody's got the opportunity to attend. But if there are questions, comments, suggestions, anything like that in between, please do reach out. As I send kind of these documents after the meeting today, you'll have my email, my phone number. You can text, call, whatever works for you. I really want to make sure that I'm doing my part to keep you all updated and answer any questions you might have.
Hey, Matt, this is Mick. Is there a working draft or even final of the job description for the director role that we could review as a council?
Yes, what I have is, I believe it's the one that we used when Kaylin was hired for the position, but I can absolutely send that out. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you.
Mhm.
Matt, quick question, or I guess comment, kind of piggybacking off of what Mick mentioned, but to me, it sort of seems like this interim period before a new director would be recruited for is, yeah, probably a pretty important period to try to like answer some more structural questions. You mentioned, looking at other state offices of outdoor recreation. And that seems like it could be a pretty helpful thing for the council to even just get up to speed on. Like, what do the other state offices of outdoor recreation look like? And then getting back to that job description, potentially thinking of ways that could be tweaked, or even if it's just behind the scenes material, like, hey, here's where we've been, but here's where we want to go, like developing that, helping to develop that vision of where the office can go, and then sort of using, the other state offices' learnings to inform that could be pretty important.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that like that work isn't being done in some form or fashion by you or others already, but just thinking that could be a pretty, that could be a helpful thing for the council to get up to speed on, if nothing else, to better support recruitment, let alone helping craft that strategy of what the office could look like. Because it seems like setting that foundation and that footing for the office is extremely important, that if that's not done well, then it becomes much harder to do anything down the road. So just a thought there.
No, that's a great suggestion. And what I can also do is, when I send this email with the PD and some of the other documents, I'll include some of the links that Kaylin and I were talking about to other agencies. And one of the things I'm wondering, as you talk through that, Ethan, and we can kind of kick this around, is maybe we invite one of the other directors of outdoor recreation in another state to sit in on the next and kind of talk about what they're doing. I think that it would certainly be helpful for me. I think that might be helpful for all of us. I don't know what your thoughts are. Okay. Great. Okay.
It's in there. I can't remember if it's called Confluence but the body of the various outdoor rec offices. I mean, maybe the invitation could even be to whoever the current chair is or something, to kind of give us that broader overview.
That's a great idea. Okay.
I know they collect data.
Great idea, Steph. Yeah, the Confluence Accords. There's a group that actually is staying abreast of all learnings as these offices and positions take shape. So I think there's something we can tap into and sort of get it all at once.
Yeah. Yep. That's a great idea. Thank you. We've still got a few minutes. If you have other questions, suggestions, I really appreciate this. I'm actually really excited about that idea of inviting folks in to talk about it. I know that would help me, and I think it would probably be beneficial for the group just to hear, one, what other folks are doing, what's working, what's not, kind of across the country, and just get that broader perspective. It's a great idea.
I don't know what the agency's current staff capacity is to support such efforts, but just when we, talk about revisiting some of the council structures and bylaws, like I don't see any reason why the new director would have to be in office for that process to start, other than a staff capacity question about kind of staffing that effort. But I think there's I'm certainly going to be experiencing some anxiousness to because of the very slow start to all of this effort, to like want to dig into the external kind of work and questions in short order, and not spend another year on bylaws and structured documents, even though that is an important body of work to undertake. So I just want to, if there is any capacity to support any of that work in tandem with the recruitment process, I would be very supportive of that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to second that.
Third,
Great. Well, thank you. Anything else? Again, this meeting is recorded, so when we're done here, I'll send out a link to the entire council. So hopefully folks that weren't able to join us can watch that before the summit next week. I'll include all these attachments and some notes of the things that we talked about. Again, if there's anything, if I miss anything, if questions come up, comments, ideas, thoughts, please reach out to me. Like I said, I'll commit to sending monthly updates. I'll get a doodle poll out to get bi-monthly meetings scheduled, and we'll get things back on track. And I really appreciate the patience and grace, and we'll get there. I'm committed to getting this back on.
thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. And if nobody has anything else, there's a gift of 9 minutes on a Thursday morning. Okay. Well, we will adjourn. Thank you so much again, and we will talk soon. I promise.